Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Bill sent me an update, and whenever I do a story, I often say I will update you as I learn more. And once in a while, it takes a while for these things to update themselves, but here we go. Remember the story about the brawling judges in the White Castle parking lot? You know how judges usually spend their off hours wrestling in parking lots and getting shot? This all happened, you'll recall, down in the Indianapolis area. 3 southern Indiana judges are facing misconduct charges in connection with Indianapolis incident. That was the original story, okay? In the original story I told you about, I did a video on when 3 judges were being charged with disciplinary charges after a shooting on May 1st of last year that left 2 Clark County judges wounded. The Indiana Commission on Judicial Qualifications announced the filing of disciplinary charges against these judges. And it was a strange incident involving an altercation outside of downtown Indianapolis White Castle. And the judges were up on disciplinary charges. And we had a large discussion in the comments below the video about whether or not a shooting in a White Castle parking lot at the early hours of the morning is the lowest you could get, or would even lower be a fist fight in a Waffle House. And I personally think the fist fight in the Waffle House is a step below the altercation in the White Castle parking lot. But again, these things are subject to interpretation. And I've told you before that judges and police officers and lawyers and teachers and anybody who's in the public eye who, they're on the government payroll of some sort and they're supposed to be doing work for us and we're supposed to respect them, should behave themselves at all times, not just when they're on the bench. So, if you're doing it in the parking lot of a White Castle restaurant, would you do that in your courtroom? Of course not, So avoid impropriety and avoid the appearance of impropriety. So the 3 judges were facing disciplinary charges, and they all pretty much got suspended and so on. But I'll do the follow-ups here. There were actually several. The first follow-up happened right around Christmas time, and it got lost in all the news about the war on Christmas. 2 southern Indiana judges were reinstated after suspension due to the Indianapolis fight. 2 of the 3 southern Indiana judges suspended by the Indiana Supreme Court in connection with the incident in May have been reinstated. Judge Bradley Jacobs of Clark Circuit Court 2 and Crawford Circuit Court Judge Sabrina Bell were each suspended for 30 days without pay. Judge Andrew Adams of Clark Circuit Court 1 was suspended for 60 days. We'll get to him in a second. We'll get to him in 30 days. Adams and Jacobs were shot during an altercation with 2 men at a downtown Indianapolis White Castle May 1st. Judge Adams was indicted by a Marion County grand jury on 7 charges and pleaded guilty to battery resulting in bodily injury on September 9th. The other 6 counts were dismissed. So anytime you've got a judge being indicted and pleading guilty and so on and so forth, you got problems. But here's what happens. The 3rd Clark County judge returning to work after Indianapolis White Castle shooting incident. Shelley Silvestri wrote this article for WAVE Wave. The 3rd Clark County judge involved in a shooting at a White Castle last year is heading back to work. Judge Andrew Adams was suspended for 60 days following the incident in Indianapolis in May, where he and Judge Bradley Jacobs were shot. Adams and Jacobs were shot during an altercation with 2 men in the parking lot of a downtown Indianapolis White Castle. White Castle is getting a lot of publicity here, so, we can discuss whether or not this is good for PR or not. On September 9th, Adams, who was indicted by a Marion County grand jury, pleaded guilty to battery, as we just said. Judge Jacobs and Judge Bell were each suspended for 30 days without pay, but they have already returned to work. So all 3 of them are back to work. And I went and dug through the various stories, trying to find out what it would be that led 3 judges to be in a White Castle parking lot at that hour of the morning with gunplay involved and the judges being up on charges of misconduct. And the story, as you might gather, is murky. I suspect it was murky for them too, but that's a suspicion of mine. But again, that gets us back to the idea that if you are a judge, you should be on your best behavior all the time. Not just when you're on the bench, not just when you're wearing the robes, all the time. Because you should be somebody that we can respect at all times. So when you walk up, sit down on the bench, we don't snicker and go, oh, that's a White Castle gun tussle guy. That's the guy who was involved in a brouhaha in a White Castle parking lot. That's that guy. gonna have a little harder time, I think, commanding the respect in the courtroom. I'm here to tell you, and I know some people say, Steve, judges aren't gods. They aren't, we shouldn't worship them. No, it's not what we're worshiping them. But judges do have a lot of power, and we give them the power. Okay, I understand that. The power comes from us. We give them an awesome power, and we expect them to handle that with respect. Okay, so it goes both ways. With awesome power comes great responsibility or something. I remember that from a movie or something, but it's absolutely true. So these guys and a gal, it's going to be a little harder, I think, for them, at least for a little while, because everyone that comes in front of them is going to go, oh, wait, the White Castle judge, one of the Three Stooges. But like I said, and it does come down to this, in the grand scheme of things. I think that getting in a tussle over a gun in a White Castle parking lot is right up there with a fist fight in a Waffle House. Now, there are other things that could happen. We could find ourselves, wrestling with raccoons in a dumpster. That might be even lower than all of this. Okay. And we've heard, crazy things out of Florida too. Don't forget, this was happening in Indianapolis. This is not Florida. This is not California. This is not one of the places that we often hear about the crazy things happening. This is Indianapolis. This is the heartland of America, where they have a race. At the race end, the winner celebrates by chugging milk. I'm not making this up. I'm making this stuff up. So that's the update on the Indiana judges. They all faced misconduct charges. They were all sanctioned by their Supreme Court, and they were all suspended for varying lengths. And one of them appears to have even pled guilty to a crime. And just so you know, in Michigan, if an attorney pleads guilty to a crime, he can pretty much kiss his law license goodbye. So, there's that to think about as well. But that's the update on the judges from the White Castle. Not Waffle House. White Castle restaurant parking lot. There you go. Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You've mistaken my microphone for a feather duster? No, I'm not his cleaning lady.